All right, chess followers, we're back in part 6 of How to Become a Chess Master series. Today, we're going to be going over another basic theme found within all games of chess. This theme is the magical theme known as chess tactics. Now, what is a chess tactic? A chess tactic is simply defined in logistic terms is when one takes advantage of a positional advantage, or positional over the board. And I'm going to explain what that is in a second. Before we get into that, we have to understand is that tactics don't come out of nowhere. So, if you steal someone's queen, for example, with your knight on the board, that's a tactic. Because your knight is taking the queen, which is a lot stronger than the knight. Another example of a tactic is an early checkmate. So if you checkmate someone, that's a tactic. Another example could be a pawn promotion. Remember inside last video we talked about how if a pawn gets to the other side and becomes a queen, that could be an advantage. So it's anything that happens on the board strategically that leads to you gaining an advantage. That's a tactic in chess. So, knowing that, let's see what the advantage is in this current position we have laid out over here. Well, first of all, it's black's turn to move, in this position at least. He has a rook, a queen, a few pawns, and same thing with white. White has a rook, a queen, and a few pawns. Now, looking at this position, how do we solve this? So now, people talk about how chess is a great thinking game, and how it takes a lot of calculation and calculative abilities to get to a winning position. So I'm going to talk about how you get tactics in the game in your game later on. But for now, understand that tactics are when you find a weakness and you take advantage of it in a game of chess. So let's see what these weaknesses are on the board. Now, if red, or in this case white, if their queen was to take over here, it would be a free pawn and it would put check to the king. That's an advantage, because not only is it a check, but you're getting a free piece for it and it's undefended. So, in this tactical position, what happened was this. Black made a fatal mistake in his calculation process, leading, right, to the red pieces getting a strategic advantage that he capitalized on. So, I'm gonna give you a few seconds to think this out. What's the right move in this position for black? Now, what black should have done in this position, right, is to defend this pawn, because this pawn would be really bad if it got under attack. With the queen, he could defend it with the king, or he could even just push the pawn to e5. And if he pushed it to e5, as you can see, it would at least be protected by the other pawn. But no. What happens is whoever had black got very greedy, and he took the rook. That should be a catchphrase, he took the rook. It rhymes too. But after he takes the rook, something very bad happens. See, right now, before he took the rook, it was all even. There was even amount of pieces on both sides. But since he didn't defend the pawn, the queen takes the pawn, and then watch that. The power of a check is put upon the king, giving the white pieces a strategic advantage. The advantage of what we call in chess the tactic of initiative. So initiative works like this. Whoever moves first wins first. So if you could get your piece, if a goal of the game, for example, was to get your enough pieces attacking d5, whoever's moving first could get their pieces to d5 quickly. So that's something to always remember. So now, now the king has to move out of check. So once it moves out of check, this is what happens. So not only did he gain a pawn, he also gets the rook by moving back over here. So that's an example of how you can not only take advantage of your opponent's mistakes, but also take advantage of what's going on the board. So remember, that's an example of how taking advantage of a disadvantage turns into a tactic on the board. And the advantage was that you could put him in check, forcing the king to move, and then leading you to get a free pawn and rook. Now, if you look at the exchange of the pieces I took off the board, the red pieces are winning because red only lost a rook, whereas the black pieces lost a rook and a pawn, henceforth giving you a strategic material advantage in the game. And if you look at this, once he made that move, there's what we call another tactic called a queen side pawn advantage. So remember, this is the king side, right? What we talked about last time? This is the queen side. Because the queen is from king starts here, the queen starts here. Now, if you look at the queen side of where the queen's at, there's 2 extra pawns. These could also turn into queens later. So right now it looks like, the red pieces are winning, and it'll probably lead to a win for red because he took advantage of the tactic. All right, let's look at another example. So here, I'll show this to you. Here we have the fact that, let's count material first, because that's one way you can find who has an advantage. So, historically speaking, and just in the game in general, minor pieces, which are the knights and the bishops, are worth 3 pawns, materially speaking. So that means that he has 1, 2, 3, plus another 3 is 6. Rooks are worth 5, so that's 11. And then one more pawn is 12. So the black pieces have 12 points worth of material. That's how much edge they have on their pieces. Now the red pieces have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So red has 11, black has 12. So knowing that, black technically has a strategic advantage. But let's see if black can maintain that advantage and win the game. So, now I want to see if you can spot this very deep. So, the black decides to put, instead of taking a wide open pawn on the e file, on e3, which is wide open. I mean, me being a master, I would take that pawn automatically, like it's instinct. As you can see, nothing's defending the pawn. There's nothing defending it. It's wide open. But instead of doing the smart move, and he got kind of cocky, whoever was playing black, and he decided, no, I'm gonna put my rook right behind my knight to be fancy, right? That's what cost him the game. Ignorance to the fact that he got a free pawn right over there. So, knowing that, how could you, in this position, gain an advantage by not only winning, but stealing, okay, either the knight or the rook from a person playing black? Take a second and think it out. All right, if you took some time to think it out, here's the answer. So, what you do, this is the first tactic, specific tactic I'm gonna teach you. It's called a fork. Or no, it's called a pin, my fault. So, there's 2 types of pins. There's a relative pin and a king pin. So, or that's how I put it. So a relative pin is when you're basically, it's like checkmate where you trap a piece, and you're threatening to take it and there's nothing they could do. But it's not against the king, it's against a piece like a queen or a knight or a rook or even a pawn. Anything where you're forcing to take something for free, that's a pin in chess. Now, you could force someone to take it because you can't move it by the king being in danger, or you could do it by another piece being in danger. I'm gonna show that to you in a second. So now that the black piece is made, the move to move a rook to d6. What the red pieces do is he moves his rook to d1. Now, what does this do? What this does is that now if he tries to take the knight, or the knight tries to take the pawn, you're pinning him. You're leaving the other rook wide open to be taken. See how that's not good for the black pieces? So basically what you did is you used another piece as a blockage so that you could take the other piece for free. That's what's called the tactic known as a pin. So now, since he can't do anything, he just makes a random move, like trying to get a free pawn. Now, what's the move here that ends it? The move, I want you to think. Take us a moment and think. How could you win the knight? Because the knight, right, is pinned to the rook. So if you can get this knight out of the way, you basically win the rook. And if you can get the rook stabilized, you win the knight. How could you do that? Take a moment and think. All right, so here's how you do it. Now here's the secret to pins, right, inside chess. So once you have a piece pinned, all you have to do is attack the front piece and you can win it. So what I mean by that, right, is in the front you have the knight, the piece you're trying to win. In the back you have the rook, the piece that you could win if he moves the knight. So knowing that, all you have to do is attack it. Now what piece, if moved, could attack the knight and win you the knight for free? The pawn, because the pawn attacks one square sideways. So if you move it up one on your turn, it's attacking the knight now, and the rook can't do anything. So, because if you move the rook, if you move the knight over here, you'll take the rook with your rook for free. So that's why you can't do that, or else you'd be losing the knight. So then after that, he moves his rook back out of scared, out of pity, and then you take with your rook or your pawn. You can do it either way, honestly. You take the knight for free. That's how you win someone's piece, by using an effective pin on the opponent's pieces. Then when he takes back, now you're winning. Because remember, before you had 12 pieces of material, and he had 11, and he had 12, you only had 11. But now, because you're taking advantage of a situation, right? Now, if you count, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and he only has 1, 2, 3, 4. So you won the knight and won 3 pieces of material just by doing so. That's an advantage. All right, so we went over how checks could be an effective tactic, and then we also went over how relative pins could be an effective tactic. Now let's look at how king pins could be an effective version of a pin to win a piece. So, remember how earlier we went inside part 3, we went over how you can't put your king in check? You could put your opponent's king in check, but you can't put your king in check because that's against the rules. So, knowing that, how would you effectively use that to your advantage? Because if you can't move your king to put him in check, that could be another effective way to take advantage of your opponent. So, in this example, what we have here is a king pin. And what I mean by that is that the king can't move past the, you can't move the knight because then you'd be exposing the king. So if you move the knight, for example, to d5, what would happen is your rook is attacking the king. So that would be an illegal move. So you can't do that. So how could you use that to your advantage? Well, I'm going to show you. So there's 2 lessons you can learn from this. I'm going to teach you a skewer, which is another maneuver you can use as a tactic, and then also I'm going to teach you a king pin. So in this position, the black pieces are really lost. I would have given up already, but I'm going to show you what happens. So let's say it's white's turn, and the white pieces take the knight. Now the smart thing to do would be just to move the king out of the way. But whoever's playing black being greedy takes. Now you just not only lost your knight, your bishop, but you also are about to lose the queen. Because what happens is, see, the king can't move because of the king, or the queen can't move, and the queen is being attacked by the rook. So knowing that, since you can't move, the queen is stable, what's called stabilized, so she can't move. So knowing that, the rook can take the queen for free, which is really bad in chess, because that's the most powerful piece into a weaker piece. And then you get a free queen. And now, if you look at the material, the queen is worth 9. That's a big number. So you have 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, versus his 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you're winning by 6 points. So that's an advantage that you can take. And then let's say that if you go a few moves back in the exact same position, that he does decide to move, then you could hit him with something called a skewer, which is another tactic I'm gonna teach you. So, let's say the king decides to move. Let's say specifically to F, this is over here now. Say he decides to move the king in this position, right? Decides to move to F8. Try to stop that from happening so he doesn't lose the queen. He's still gonna lose the queen, because what happens is bishop. Oh, so the bishop takes the knight, right? The bishop takes the knight. But then look at this. When you put the king in check and you're attacking a piece at the same time, by using the king check to win a piece, or to use attacking one piece to get another piece, that's called a skewer. Now look at this, right? The king's in check, so it has to move. Now you could take with the queen to try to get out of check, but then you'd be losing the queen to the rook yet again. So what happens is, what you have to do is, one way you can try to get out is by moving, like we talked about before, but then you would just lose the queen. So he takes the queen, and the queen takes the bishop, but when the rook takes the bishop, you're still winning. So see how that's two different ways you can win in the same position. So I talked about the tactic of using a skewer. I talked about using checks to win pieces and to gain a strategic advantage, which is also known as a tactic when you gain a strategic advantage off an opponent's weakness that we talked about. I also talked about not how just checks and skewers could be used, but king pins and relative pins could be used to gain an advantage. Now in chess, there's hundreds of tactics that can be utilized at any moment during the game to gain an advantage. Like we talked about passing, getting the pawn of the other side. That's an advantage because now you're getting an extra piece. All these are little things that are done in chess to help someone gain an advantage, and it can happen in any game at any time at all. So knowing that, this is part 6, and we'll go over some more tactics next time, but these are some must-know themes. The pin, the skewer, and using checks to your advantage. Finally, we're gonna go over, like, set this up real quick, a fork. So, okay. So, an example of a fork, it goes as follows. Let me find this real quick. How would I do this? No, I think that's bad. Let me see. Yeah, okay, let me see. Oh, yeah. All right. So the final example is called a fork, and it's specifically done with a knife. All right, so as you can see, the black pieces are winning because he has more material, and then also he just has a better position in general. But what happens is he makes a fatal mistake that costs him the game, and he gets hit with what's called a knight fork. Now there's two types of forks inside chess, just like inside pins. There's king pins, and then there's relative pins. So, and basically, in chess, there's two types of forks. There's a knight fork, and then there's a regular fork. I'm gonna show you a knight fork first. A knight fork is specifically with a knight. So a fork, a pin, right, is when you're attacking a piece to win another piece, whereas a fork is you're attacking the king to get a piece, specifically the king. So to explain this, is how this works. So the rook sees a wide open pawn. He decides to take the pawn. It's like it's for free, right? No, nothing is free in chess. It's all a joke. So what happens is the knight moves over to c7, and then watch this. So basically, the king is in check, and the next move, you can take the rook. So now, after this, he moves the king to try to get out of check, right? He's right over here, I'm gonna show you. He moves the king because he's in check by the knight, and then now you get a free rook. And when he takes back, pretend the queen wasn't there. Now you're winning because he has 1, 2, 3, 4 pawns, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawns. So now you're in a winning position because you took advantage of a fork. Another example would be a find it would be a relative fork. So right now you see this. Okay, so the red king thinks that he's gonna get a free pawn on d4. So free pawn's a free pawn. I'm gonna take that, right? He takes the free pawn, not knowing the dangers of what lies next. So the king moves out of the way, putting the opposite king in check. He moves back, and then now watch this. The rook was laid unprotected by the check line. That's why it's called a score, because the line is messed up. And then basically you get a free queen for a pawn. Now black is winning because he has 5, 6, 7, 8 points of material, where white only has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Henceforth, the black piece is winning this position. So far I went over how pawn breaks could be an advantage, how checks could be an advantage, how all types of little maneuvers in chess give you an advantage, which are known as tactics, when you take advantage of a disadvantage that your opponent has. Now, in the description of this video, I will put a list of chess tactics. This is just an introductory, but make sure you memorize all those tactics before we go on to the next episode. Because the next episode, we're going to be going into stuff on how to get tactics and strategy. With the strategy, you'll basically be able to get tactics in your games so that you can take advantage of a weakness and how to lead the checkmate. So knowing that, go to the description below to find the list of tactics that you can take advantage of in the game. Memorize all 56 of them. Should take you a long time, at least 2 weeks to do so. And then be ready to learn how to turn tactics in your game. So yeah, this is part 6 of the chess series. This is called Learning What Tactics Are, and goodbye.